Brad Holmes is all in on Jared Goff.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's do this thing, everybody, on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions, January 23rd into Friday, January 24th. Matt Derry with you. Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, indeed your team every day. Thank you, everybody, for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks to those of you that subscribe and watch us, of course, for free on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. A lot to get into today. Brad Holmes, Lions general manager, held his annual end of the season press conference. Big highlight for me came from discussing the quarterback situation and Jared Goff. We will get into that coming up momentarily here on the podcast. Reports say the Lions already have replaced Terrell Williams with the at the D-line coach spot. We'll get into that. Associated Press NFL awards are out. Jared Goff is up for MVP. Dan Campbell is up for Coach of the Year. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, Assistant Coaches of the Year. We'll get into that. And also our call of the day today, which if you want to be our call of the day, you can do so at speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page. Got to give a shout out to our guy today, Josh Breshgold, Joshua Gold Clothiers in Royal Oak. He's a big Lions fan and checking us out on Locked On Lions for the first time today. So we appreciate all of our everydayers and everybody that checks us out. Locked On Lions today brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, so Lions, of course, still licking their wounds from last week. Still many fans in shock. Still people upset. We've reached Thursday. NFC Championship game on Sunday at 3 o'clock. We'll feature the Eagles and Commanders in Philly and won't have the Lions playing in it. Ben Johnson off to Chicago. Aaron Glenn off to the Jets. No other movement really today. We will tell you about the new Lions D-line coach reportedly coming up. Of course, Terrell Williams also leaving for New England as D-line coach there. News of the day is that Brad Holmes, Lions general manager, who has done a great job in his 4 years at the helm running the front office, spoke to the media earlier today in Allen Park. Talked about, long-term contracts for Aiden Hutchinson, and talked about how Kirby Joseph got snubbed for the Pro Bowl. He brought up that he'd like to have Kevin Zeitler back. He brought up that he wants to bring Carlton Davis back. All right. But the biggest story, I think, coming out of this was Brad Holmes' comments on Jared Goff. All right. Jared Goff is under fire again from some, S-O-M-E, some Lions fans who believe that they're hearing the narrative again, that Jared Goff can't win a big game. Jared Goff can't get this team to the Super Bowl. Jared Goff can't do this. Goff can't do that, etc. Brad Holmes, Lions general manager, squashed all of that earlier today. This is audio courtesy of DetroitLions.com. And let me get this queued up here. But Brad Holmes was asked about Goff and his future with the Lions and how he feels about his quarterback. Take a listen.
I think the guy's in his prime. He's gotten better and better every year. And when I say prime, I think like just entering it. It's because he keeps ascending. I think like every single year we've been here, it's the next year has been, man, he's playing that, and the levels keep improving. So again, I just have a lot of faith in Dan, and I know that he'll make sure that Jared's gonna be in a good position.
So despite the fact that Ben Johnson is gone, despite the fact that some things are going to change, certainly offensively next year with whomever is coming in as offensive coordinator, whether it's Tanner Engstrand or Hank Fraley, internally, Scotty Montgomery, Mark Brunell, who knows? Antoine Randall, who knows? No one knows. You heard some very key comments right there. You heard some key comments right there from Brad Holmes. The general manager believes that his quarterback is ascending. He believes that not only is he in his prime, but he's only going to get better. Now, Jared Goff was the lowest rated Lions offensive player, according to PFF, last Saturday night when the Washington football team Commanders came into town and poleaxed the Lions. Jared Goff had a bad day. He had a really bad day. He was not good. Pick six, the whole shooting match. Okay. I'm gonna tell you later in the show, Jared Goff is up for MVP of the league. There are 5 candidates for MVP. He's one of them. Yet there's this notion that it's time for Hendon Hooker, or it's time that he just can't do it. He just can't get over the hump. You heard the general manager. Bradley Holmes believes they've got the guy. And oh, by the way, there's 4 more years left on that brand new contract given to number 16. Some of you are going to go, well, Matt, this is your podcast. How do you feel about it? I think the Lions have their quarterback. I think the Lions have bigger issues. Does Jared Goff run around like Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes, guys that are left in this playoffs, this postseason? Josh Allen? No, he does not. But be careful, Lion fans, in my opinion. Be careful what you wish for. Who do you want to go get? If, let's say, Brad Holmes, which he didn't do, and he's not going to do, if Brad Holmes said, yeah, he's taking us as far as he can take us and this and that, and he, biggest game of the year, he crapped the bed, whatever you want to say. But Jared Goff is here to stay. And you heard from the big boss man, no, not the WWE wrestler, but the former. You heard from Brad Holmes. He's ascending. They believe, Brad Holmes believes, that Jared Goff is only going to get better. And if you take a look at the big picture, the Detroit Football Lions won 15 effing games with Jared Goff under center. Did he play his best game in the last game? No, he did not. Was he outplayed by the young rookie Jaden Daniels? Yes, he was. But if you think the Lions are even contemplating going in a different direction, they are not. They are not. We got a young kid in Hendon Hooker that I believe will be the backup next year with no other distractions. Not that Teddy Bridgewater late in the season became a distraction, but I think Teddy Bridgewater is moving on. I think Teddy Bridgewater got done coaching high school and said, hey, guess what, guys? If something happens to 16, I can step right in, because the young kid from Tennessee really is playing his first full season in the NFL. And he wasn't out there ever, other than in garbage time. Brad Holmes is saying ascending, only going to get better in his prime. And that's it. They are riding with 16. I don't necessarily believe that things have to be so perfect around him because he's lacking. I don't believe that. Yes, he played poorly in the last game. That doesn't mean he sucks. It doesn't. And Holmes made it a point today. We're going to be just fine without Ben Johnson. They loved Ben Johnson. And by the way, anybody that thinks that Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell had some sort of rift, where's that coming from? That's pure buffoonery. And Johnson reiterated that today, I believe, on a Chicago radio station. He's like, that's my mentor. That's my guy. That's not true. Jared Goff will work well with whomever is the next OC. And oh, by the way, that's Jared is going to have a hand in deciding who that's going to be. Because I think he's built up enough cachet over the last 3 years at least. The first year was such a throwaway because it was an awful season. He had nothing around him. He was throwing to Quintez Cephas and, Jeff Rieger and Tom Kennedy. So, it wasn't exactly a who's who along that Lions offense. All right, coming up next, we got a new D-line coach coming to town. This worked quickly, according to reports. Also, the Lions are up for a bunch of NFL awards. We'll get into that as well right here on a Thursday edition of Locked On Leos. But hey, we got to talk about our friends at Talkspace, new sponsor here on Locked On Lions. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, a leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match up with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, listen up. You're going to get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for Locked On Lions. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80. All right, back on Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network on a Thursday night, recording a little bit late today. I just want to make sure we get all the news of the day in and nothing breaks while we were on the air. Real fast before we talk about the Lions interviewing a defensive coordinator candidate, a new D-line coach. Shout out to the Detroit Pistons, by the way. They're playing really good basketball, and as of right now, they are sitting in the 6th spot in the East and would be in the playoffs and not even need to be in the play-in tournament at number 6. Cade Cunningham is having a huge year. JB Bickerstaff has brought stability to that head coaching room. And quite honestly, he's a head coach that gives a crap. Last year's guy did not care and didn't want to be here. So JB Bickerstaff has done a great job. Malik Beasley's been huge. Duran, Beef Stew. It's cool. It's cool to see the Pistons back and relevant again. And I don't think there's enough talk in this town about the resurgence that this franchise has been under this year, under the stewardship of Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff. So shout out to the Detroit Pistons, playing good basketball right now. A big win last night over the Hawks, and happy for real Pistons fans, like the hardcores that are out there, the Jacob Bondericks, the Sue Duplantis, all those that just love their Pistons. Carson Mamo, love their Pistons. So shout out to fans and to the organization. They've done it right with good people at GM and coach, and now they're winning. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, according to reports, as first reported by Jordan Schultz from NFL Media, the Lions are going to interview Larry Foote. Yes, former Michigan linebacker, former Lion linebacker, and current inside linebackers coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks. Larry Foote is going to interview for the Lions defensive coordinator job. I still think when the dust settles, Kelvin Shepard, Lions' current linebackers coach, is going to be the guy. I don't think the Lions can let Shep go. I just don't see that. Tigers let Shep go. Lions will not let this Shep go. I just think he's that good. I think he's ready to have this job. And while Larry Foote is a local guy, Detroit's own, University of Michigan, former Lion, great that he's getting an interview. I don't know if that's going to happen. I still believe that it's going to be Kelvin Shepard that's going to be the defensive coordinator, replacing Aaron Glenn, who's heading to the Jets. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler tonight, the Lions are going to hire Casey Rogers, Kacy Rogers, as their next defensive line coach. He will take over for Terrell Williams, who, of course, left 2 days ago for the Patriots D coordinator job. Rogers has been running the Tampa Bay Bucks defensive line for the last 6 years. His contract is up. He's also the run game coordinator there. And it was the first 3 years with Tampa. Rogers was their D-line coach. And then the last 3 years, he's been the D-line coach and the run game coordinator. He was the John Tierlink Defensive Line Coach of the Year back in 2020. And if you look at Tampa Bay, 46 sacks this year, good for 6th in the league. And they only allowed 97 yards per game. That's 4th in run defense. So there you go. Casey Rogers to the Lions. He also has talked to the Packers about their D-line coach. But here's the thing, and this is what I like. You know how good the Tampa Bay Bucs defense has been for like decades. They were good before Todd Bowles got there. They've been always solid. And I love this hire. I think this is going to be a good hire for the Lions. I like that they're going to a team that has had a good D-line, that has had some guys, including Vita Vea and others, that have improved each year. And going outside the family to get another D-line coach, I have no issue with it all. No issue with it all. So keep an eye on that being made official pretty soon, as first reported by Jeremy Fowler. All right, we referenced this before, but Jared Goff, despite some, not all, some Lions fans thinking he cannot get us to a Super Bowl, which I disagree with. I think he can. Jared Goff is, in fact, an MVP candidate in the NFL. The league today announced their award finalists for their award show that's coming up on February the 6th. Jared Goff is, in fact, a finalist for MVP. Could you imagine? Seriously, could you imagine talking about getting rid of a guy that is one of the top 5 finalists for MVP? Do you think in Cincinnati they're talking about getting rid of Joe Burrow? Do you think in Philly they're discussing trading Saquon Barkley? Do you think in Baltimore they're saying Lamar Jackson's not good enough? What about in Buffalo with Josh Allen? The answer is no, 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 and Jared Goff is up for MVP. That would be most valuable player. All right. He completed 72% of his passes. He threw 37 touchdowns. He had a career high 111.8 passer rating, and he's only 30 years old. This is why Brad Holmes said earlier, Jared Goff isn't going anywhere. He's up for the MVP. That's pretty sweet. As far as coach of the year, not a surprise, Dan Campbell. I said it the minute they beat the Minnesota Vikings that Dan Campbell should be coach of the year. And it's not because the Lions finished 15-2. It's not because he beat Kevin O'Connell, who's also up for the award twice. It's because of what the Lions were able to sustain all season, despite 16, 18, 20 players on injured reserve. So Campbell is one of the 5 finalists for the coach of the year, joining Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, the Broncos Sean Payton, the Chiefs Andy Reid, how about them Chiefs, and Commandos coach Dan Quinn. Now, Dan Quinn did a whale of a job. All right. And Dan Quinn might win this thing because the Commanders went from 4 wins to 12 plus 2. All right. They are, what was it, 11? No, it's 12. That's a great job. But again, I say on Dan Campbell, tell me another coach who has put a team in a position to have the top seed in the NFC. And I know they lost. But 15 wins without Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Marcus Davenport, Carlton Davis at the end of the year. I mean, the list goes on and on. On and on. So that's pretty sweet for Dan Campbell. I hope he wins it. He deserves it. He does. He has had that good of a season and did that good of a job as head coach. Lions have 2 assistant coaches that are up for the assistant coach of the year. Of course, both of them are now gone, but regardless, up for assistant coach of the year. Bills OC Joe Brady, Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, and the 2 Lions assistants, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. I can't remember a time ever, and I've been here since 1996, The Lions have had 2 assistant coaches this highly regarded. Now they're both gone, but still both up for assistant coach of the year. You know how many assistant coaches there are around the NFL? 32 teams, 300 assistant, 320, 400, a ton. And our guys here made the top 5. They are both finalists, Johnson and Glenn, which I think is pretty amazing. Brian Flores did a damn good job of that Vikings defense again, but you could make an argument for any of these people. So I think that is pretty cool, to say the least. All right, let's do our call of the day. We will do that coming up next here on a Thursday edition of Locked on Lions. Dalton Wasserman, Pro Football Focus. Our buddies at PFF are checking in tomorrow. We'll talk to Dalton Wasserman live. Well, not really live. We tape it, but we'll talk to him tomorrow right here on Locked on Lions. And our program today brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps really getting better every game, and they make it more exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Both games this weekend, 3 o'clock, 6:30, 3 p.m. Sunday, Eagles, Commanders. Want to bet on the game you can. Bills, Chiefs. Again, go to FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right, folks, we like to do this from time to time. We like to play a call of the day. Call of the day. We need a sponsor for call of the day, by the way. But call of the day can be accessed by going to speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page and checking in on our call of the day. One of our everydayers checks in today on call of the day. And let's hear from him right now.
Hey, Matt, this is RC from Rockford, Michigan. And I just wondered what draft picks the Lions are going to get from the minority coaches that they're losing.
All right, RC, short and to the point from beautiful Rockford, Michigan. Great question, RC. So with Aaron Glenn departing from the Lions to the Jets to become their head coach, the Lions are going to receive what they call a compensatory third-round pick. So at the end of the third round this year, they will hand out compensatory picks based upon coaches leaving, free agents leaving, and they will dole those out. The Lions get 2 for losing Aaron Glenn because he is a minority head coach and is going to the Jets. So in 2025, so this year's draft, they'll get a third-round added compensatory pick. And then next year in 2026, same thing. End of the third round, they add in a few picks, compensatory, whether it was, again, losing Glenn, losing free agents, whatever it is, a third round compensatory pick for Aaron Glenn. Not enough can be said about what Brad Holmes has done in the draft over the last 4 years. He has done a miraculous job. So any chance that this franchise gets to get extra picks, the Lions will take it for sure. And what's interesting is today is January 23rd, and we have spent so little time on the draft because the Lions have been good. The Lions have been very good. And so we've talked about the playoffs. We talked about the games. We talked about whatever else. There were times doing Locked On Lions, and I've been doing this show since 2016, that we have had to discuss the draft like in freaking November. My buddy Mike Vanderpool, Heart of a Lions fan, was like, yeah, what's it like in January? He was asking me at his podcast, what's it like in January talking about the team and not about the draft? But getting an extra third round pick, Brad Holmes has hit on many mid-round picks. Look at what Kirby Joseph has brought to the table. Look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? So giving Brad Holmes some more ammunition, I think, is pretty cool. And as Brad said today, kind of in his yearly wrap up, they're disappointed. This is not the goal that they had set to just get to the playoffs. But this team is set up to do very, very well for a long time. And regardless of all the coaching changes that are going to happen, the assistants that are bolting, and others that will go, Brad said it. We've got a good young base. Dan and I are going to work together. Anytime you got a guy like Dan Campbell doing his thing, you feel good about the process. And the Lions will attack the draft the same as they always do. They're going to go and get the best available player out there that's on their board. Now, from this year, 2025 draft, according to a lot of the draft experts, is one of the worst drafts in the last few years. It is not a great top-heavy draft. But Brad Holmes, doesn't matter if it's a good draft or bad draft, has brought in some really good football players. And he'll do that again. And you have to figure for this draft coming up, there will be multiple defensive linemen taken by Brad Holmes. Last year he went with multiple corners. We saw a lot from Terrion Arnold. I like the way he played. Brad said he loved the way he battled this year. Ennis Rakestraw will get more of an opportunity next year. Hopefully the team brings back Carlton Davis. We'll see. But I would just figure we're going to see some defensive linemen in this draft. All right, Dalton Wasserman from Pro Football Focus is going to join us tomorrow. This has been a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. Stay warm. I know it's been very, very cold and snow and everything else, but and keep your head up, Lions fans. I mean, this does suck. It does. Everybody wants to talk about this team. Everybody is still ticked off as to what happened last week, but see where this whole thing goes with the coaching staff and everything else, which should be kind of coming more to the top of the pool here pretty soon. So we'll talk to you again tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions.